So welcome to FI Ghana's event tonight. It's both meet this ecosystem, but we're also looking at some of the players that make up an ecosystem, because otherwise, how do you make it? So that could be entrepreneurs, the mentors, the partners, some diaspora, all the people that go into making Ghana's great, but also Africa. And we've got a great selection here to introduce you to tonight. Have a really simple, easy discussion about how we make startups in Ghana even stronger. And that could be through connections, networks, relationships, etc. So without further ado, that was my welcome and introduction. Then we're going to meet the panel for tonight's session. Then we have our discussion, some questions from you guys in the audience. Then without that, we have to talk a little bit about FI, that's why we're here as well. And then some questions in closing. So we're fortunate tonight as well. We'll be doing the event in partnership with both Bantaba, hi Lamin, and AfricaBerlin Network. Hi Marcelino, hi Mahi, and hi from me as well. We'll go straight into introducing the panelists, and I'll get them to introduce themselves, and then I'll try and connect the dots as well afterwards. So we'll go left to right. So Nana, good evening to you. I'm going to guess where each person is. Okay, you're in Accra.
Yeah, I'm in Accra.
This is a fun game which I usually lose.
I'm in Accra, absolutely. Thanks so much, Simon. I'm Nana. I'm an FI grad, and my company is called Grow For Me. What we do is simple. We first of all provide a ready market for the farmer to sell his or her harvest at a warehouse and get paid instantly. And secondly, we provide some input financing for farmers to grow more. Hence our name, Grow For Me. In summary, a commodity financing, trading, and aggregation company, and I really look forward today to share my experience with the entire team. And by the way, guys, Simon really helped my company, and I'm so excited to have the opportunity to do this. He's a special guy. Thanks.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll get on to how much I helped you later. Thanks, Dada. Marcelino, you're going to be in Berlin, please.
Yes, I'm currently in Berlin, and so I'm basically, my name is Marcelino. I'm working at Impact. I'm the program manager based in Berlin of the AfricaBerlin Network, and really happy to be here.
It's great to have you here, Marcelino. It's your first time, and hopefully not the last. So I'll be nice to you. Eto, I think you're in bed unwell in Tema. How's that for a guess?
Exactly, yes.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Really exciting to join all of us here. So Etonam Fianivija, you can simply call me Eto. I'm the founder of Speaker, and what we do as Speaker, we are a platform connecting Africans through languages spoken on continents. So it's as simple as it sounds. So great to be here, Simon.
Thank you for joining us, or particularly given that you're not feeling too great. That's the true signs of an entrepreneur, huh? Okay, Lamin, welcome for the first time. Thank you for joining us from Stockholm.
That's correct. That's correct. Thanks for having me, Simon. I'm super happy to be here and to be together with the rest of the panelists here. Yeah, I mean, I'm Lamin. I am from Gambia in West Africa, but I'm currently living in Stockholm, and I've been out of Gambia now for about 10 years, even though I visit quite regularly. But I'm also founder at Bantaba, which is the capacity that I'm here for today. And what we do at Bantaba is, we are essentially a community platform that connects tech founders in the African continent with professionals and investors within the African diaspora community. And that's what we do.
Nice tight hits there. I love that. Thanks, Lyman. Great to have you here. And Chris, welcome back. Then I'm going to guess you might as well be in space because you're in the middle of nowhere.
True. I am coming from the middle of the Mojave Desert. How I ended up here is a different story for a different time, but it's random. Always excited to literally come and participate in one of the most exciting startup ecosystems in the world. My name is Chris Fultz. I'm one of the founders, Institute's Entrepreneur in Residence. I've worked out of the Silicon Valley program for the last couple of years. My original program was in San Francisco, but I work in about 20 programs around the world. And Ghana just has such amazing leadership, phenomenal mentors, great startups. I see my pal Itor's here tonight. I love anytime I get to engage with her. But Simon, you know, I got to tell you, just like all the other people that are here tonight, you played such a significant role in the ecosystem. And I'm thankful that you do it through Founder Institute. So that's what makes this program so phenomenal. So thank you for having me tonight. Look forward to participating.
Thanks, Chris, for joining the Simon Turner Love-In with Nana. That's great. And last but not least, I'm going to guess, Mahi, please make it 6 out of 6 and be in Berlin.
Yeah, this is Mahi Sal. Thanks for having me. Berlin based. I wear many hats, but for tonight, I'm going to have the AfricaBerlin Network / Founder Institute Ghana caps on. My background is in financial services, and I saw there, I see right now fintech bank partnerships, and there is no bank here, so we'll forget about that piece. And looking forward to a fruitful conversation here with you guys.
Thanks, Mahi. So I guess one of the reasons as well that we selected such a great group of people to join us tonight, and thank you for joining. Some of your time zones as well aren't very friendly either, is that you all play a different role in the ecosystem. You've all had a different experience. You come from slightly different backgrounds. In one way or another, you're very heavily tied to Founder Institute, or maybe just at the start, but let me weave the story. So we obviously started FI in 2019 when FI used to be entirely in person, and then something called COVID hit. And as Nana experienced during his program, we went from being in person in Accra to being virtual. And we've stayed virtual ever since, working on the basis that talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't. And for example, I'm sure perhaps Etor would never have been able to be a founder on the program if we'd have been hosting it in Accra every evening, which was never fun based on Accra traffic, etc., etc. So we've remained FI Ghana ever since, have typically also been the most Pan-African of cohorts as well. And not Etor's, but the previous one, to full 20. We had 5 continents and 16 countries represented on the cohort as well. So it shows that virtual and diaspora and foreigners and whatever, anywhere can join our program. It's very relevant. So Nana is here because he basically represents someone who's gone through the entire FI system, that he started as, let me say, little Nana, with little grow for me, an idea, a plan, and some traction. Is that fair, Nana? And basically Excel joined, got into the funding lab, which is our next exclusive accelerator for those that graduate. Obviously only about a quarter of our founders graduate the program, such is its intensity. Etor is here because she's currently going through funding lab as well. But Nana then went through the next accelerator, which is basically the top 2% in the world. He's got funding. He's one of Google for Startups' top 50 Black African founders last year. I think he's a legend. I still get to work with him as well, and we have continued in different guises over the years. Today I signed another thing to work with Nana. I just need his signature as well. But that's where Nana is here, because he represents all of that. And Nana couldn't have, and Etor, who's been through our most recent program, it was nominated as our top graduate by every single founder and every single team member. So I think that probably speaks volumes as well. She's graduated, she's gone on, she's got partnerships, she's got into the funding lab, which is basically top 5% globally. Probably experiencing that maybe I wasn't so tough during the core program after all. But she's most recently here, and this is where Chris comes in, because Chris has been a mentor for a couple of cohorts now, and I think has definitely added some flavor to the program, and I almost wouldn't want to do the program without him, such as his impact. But Chris and Etor also have a great relationship now. I think Chris is on Etor's advisory board, such as the way we roll and the relationships you generate, as similar with Nana and I. And then, of course, we have Mahi. Mahi has also been a mentor for the last 2 cohorts, I think. Since as soon as we went virtual, Mahi was actually one of the first non-local people to be on our program. I don't know if you know that, Mahi, but you were. So it's great, and we kind of shows the different connections of different mentors being in different places. And that's one of the things I really try to create with FI in Ghana, is that it's important to have a very local context, but we also need a very global view as well. And it's not good enough just to produce startups that are pretty good. In Ghana, we want, dare I say it, kick-ass international players that can hold their own with any startup anywhere. So that's what we need. And we do that by having exposure to different people in different places who think different things from all over the world, such as Chris. And then, of course, we've got Marcelino, who is the program manager for AfricaBerlin Network, of which Mahi and I are both ambassadors. Thank you, Marcelino, for that. We're just kicking off. We're just learning, really, finding our feet and how we make it relevant to, and in Ghana's case, the Ghanaian ecosystem. And this is our start by having Marcelino and AfricaBerlin Network here. And then with Lamin as well. Lamin, I hope you're going to be mentoring during the program when we kick off. But, you know, Bantaba is very essential and very built around the interest that the diaspora networks have on what's happening on the ground here on the continent, but don't necessarily know how to connect with founders locally. So guess what? We've got the founders locally. We can help there. So that's where Bantaba come in, and Lamin obviously also being a diasporan African. I've got so many entrepreneurs here that have also wear entrepreneur hats, wear mentor hats. So that's my intro, trying to weave everything together. I hope I didn't get anything wrong or step on any toes, but that would be me. So let me kick off. I'm going to ask Nana. Okay, Nana, given we are here for FI, but we're also here to talk about the ecosystem. You've obviously, this is your second startup, your first one being, you know, one of the most successful businesses to come out of West Africa. So you've done this well twice, which is no small feat. Particularly given the raising that was required and all the focus. So tell me, in your experience, let's say in the last 5 years, how the ecosystems evolved, and if it's improved, why that is.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Really, it has really evolved and significantly improved. I know that about 7 years ago, we saw startups that were growing that had some exit, but they never mentioned what the exit value was, and it was very quiet. So we knew there was hope, but it wasn't too clear. Now, 7 years down the line, 10 years down, I have startups raising significant rounds that are made public, and local investors are going home happy and singing to the bank because they're seeing that the investments are really yielding results. So on the investor side, I think there's a lot of investor confidence growing, particularly around the fintech space, but in the whole ecosystems as a whole in terms of technology, a lot of people are now playing in this space, and you're finding very experienced people joining the ecosystem. Secondly, there's also a lot of funding, external investments in the ecosystem. And the result is that you have a lot of amazing companies coming up and growing fast. I mean, some are raising as much as a couple of millions, something that was unheard of. And it's allowing companies locally to grow and take their business elsewhere. In terms of human capital, it's phenomenal. The quality of the talent is great, but however, it's created, I'll say, another problem. International markets are picking up these talents. UK, Canada, America are really just picking up great talents from Ghana, Nigeria, and it's becoming very challenging to retain great talent, whether they are software engineers or they are customer support and people. It's becoming quite challenging. So what's happening is that a lot of people in the ecosystem are beginning to think global, not just local. So people are sourcing their support staff, their engineering staff from across the world once the budget is right. So it's really growing, it's changing, it's becoming more global in my perspective than just the local ecosystem where people are looking just internally. In my case, as you know, Simon, I raised my first round out of Ghana, and a number of my team members are not fully Ghanaian. Some are multinationals and so on. So it's a very different ecosystem now in the parts. But I'll finish by saying that it couldn't really get here without critical ecosystem shapers like Founder Institute, Meltwater, CC Hub, and the list goes on, and even most recently Google. But the very unique thing about FI is that it gives you a certain network, and the network is really localized and targeted and understand what happens within the ecosystem within which you play. So when you get, say, an FI advisor comparing to an advisor from other ecosystem shapers or accelerators or incubators, you find that the FI advisor tends to really understand the space you are in and can provide you targeted and specific advice that can help you grow your business. So on a broad scope, that's my perspective on what's happening in the ecosystem. And people like Simon are making it work, and I think it's amazing what's happening.
Thanks, Nana. And I think, so Marcelino, I'm going to bring this into you because Nana raised the point about talent. And I could go to Lamin on this as well. And I think for both of you, Victor goes first, that, one of the reasons your networks exist is that we're trying to build these bridges. We're recognizing that the talent may not necessarily exist and doesn't have to exist in the city where we are, no matter which city. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with talent in Ghana, but we can find talent wherever we want it. And Marcelino, we've talked about this in terms of AfricaBerlin. So maybe just give us a little bit of an insight into who AfricaBerlin is, and then maybe talk a little bit around the talent bridging component.
Perfect. Thanks, Simon. So, yeah, well, basically, that's one of the key points that we are trying to address in the AfricaBerlin Network, that the brain drainage is terrible all over the world. It's happening everywhere. And most likely, those talents are going to go to well-developed countries. So the key about our network that we are having is that we do believe in entrepreneurship. We do believe the capacity of innovation from talented entrepreneurs such as Nana, that basically rocket from zero to hero in a matter of years. I'm sure it was not easy, but he did it. And just like him, there are a lot of entrepreneurs all over the world that are capable of doing the same and reaching the same heights. The difficulties that we find out were that basically there is not linkage from the local opportunities to the external opportunities. And then we also need to pay a lot of attention now, because the globalized world, it's a world that it doesn't really matter where you're from. What really matters is what's your idea. And if you're able to share that idea effectively with the right people, most likely you're going to be able to scale it and bring profits back to your communities. That it's something that I strive for, and that we're basically trying to do at the AfricaBerlin Network, that I'm going to, if possible, talk a little bit more later about it. Yep. And about the second question, one thing that you said, talk a little bit around it about the AfricaBerlin Network and so on. And something also that Nana mentioned was the perspectives, not the perspectives that are being given. That it's also something that I found key in these type of programs, because mentors, I think that's a key thing that they do. They provide a different perspective to problems that we might have on our day-to-day lives. No? So on that is I'm gonna add a little bit also on my background. So basically, I'm a Mexican citizen, born and raised, and throughout my life, I've managed to live in several countries and work in different countries such as Switzerland, Germany, Egypt, Ukraine, China, and Mexico. No? And my most active interest, passion, and experience comes from social entrepreneurship and agribusiness. That's my field of interest, which also relates a lot with Ghanaian ecosystem, that at least and the work of the AfricaBerlin Network. And why do I believe this is important? Like to become a mentor, no? Especially what's the Mexican mentor doing in Ghana and the other side of the world, no? And because I once had a mentor, and that mentor basically changed my life. And when you compare, also again bringing perspectives, if you put Mexico into perspective, we're the 15th biggest economy in the world. We're an OECD country list. If you have the GDP of some of the Mexican states, we have the same GDP per capita as Australia or the States or Sweden, for example. But then there are other states that are absolutely not at all living that reality, such as my state. My state is the state that has the lowest GDP per capita. So basically, when you compare that, I would say that that's a comparable status, especially when you attach the purchase power parity of Ghana. I would say that I'm quite similar to a Ghanaian, at least in the way that I was brought up. And then because of these mentors is that I gained a different perspective that changed my reality, that took me to live in these countries. And also, well, something that I like to say is that I also think mentorship is really important, especially if you're someone that, like me, has not only managed to set up a business, but also failed at it. No? So that's also something really important to share, that it's not going to be easy nor fast. And I do believe that just like Mexico right now, and all over Africa, there are more university graduates than ever before. And all of those university graduates are going to need advice, are going to need someone that gives them a different perspective, which is a great job that the Founders Institute is doing. And it's also something that we want to do in the AfricaBerlin Network. Mm-hmm. On that, we are active in 5 different countries. We have people on the ground in Africa. Actually, Ernest is here in the audience. He's the lead in Ghana. And we're really looking forward for you to reach out to us, even if it's not like a mentor like me right now with the Founders Institute that I'm super proud of being part of, but that you can also approach the AfricaBerlin Network, because we're going to be there trying to help you connect, trying to help you build bridges so that you not only connect with the ecosystem, let's say in developed countries, but also within your own ecosystem and in other non-developed countries that most likely will have the same problems that your startup could help to solve. So yeah, that would be in a nutshell. And sorry that I spoke a little bit longer.
No, that's cool. You actually saved me for a moment because my internet was about to go, and so you kept talking, which was great. But I mean, there's so many things you brought up there, Marcelino. That it's also, you mentioned something early on as well about having a great idea, but it's all well and good having this great idea, but like in Nana's position, if it hadn't have been for FI and the global network of FI, if it wasn't for his VC investors that put money into him, we wouldn't, or the fact most of you guys being here, like we wouldn't be able to have that reach. So we'd be sitting in a vacuum, just in a crowd, still hoping for someone to knock on our door. And I guess Lyman, let me go to you. That you've obviously built Bantaba around solidifying some of these networks and trying to bring them in a cohesive way. And I don't know, do you call yourself an expat? Do you call yourself a migrant? Do you call yourself diaspora? Like I don't know. Like I wonder myself as well. You're
me, like yeah. I mean, yeah. I mostly call myself a diaspora, right? And I think that's in general a term that many people like myself, people typically born in Africa, raised there, and move out of the continent for various reasons would typically resonate with, right? But I think our journey at Bantaba, it's almost also came out of the acknowledgement of the problem that Nana mentioned, right? Which is the fact that I think one of the side effects of technology, but also digitalization, is that it has globalized the world talent pool, right? And that means that all of a sudden people are competing for talent everywhere, right? Including in Africa. So African startups are now in fact competing with more established companies, not just in Africa, but outside of Africa, right? And I think there are different ways to kind of address that or mitigate the impacts of that, if I would put it that way. But one of the things that we think is key and that we focus on is trying to build that bridge that makes it possible for African founders to be also able to look for talent outside, right? And in our case, we've been deliberate in terms of focusing on the diaspora for many reasons, but most importantly for the fact that I think the key value in focusing in the diaspora is the fact that they have that local market, understanding of the local context that you've mentioned, Simon, in the beginning. But in addition to that, they also have this global experience and exposure, which in my opinion, when it comes together, can breed really, really great things, right? And at Bantaba, we try to build a solution that then makes it possible for founders on the continent to be able to tap into this talent pool, right? Whether it's they are looking for mentors, they are looking for consultants, or even investors, right? People who are looking at opportunities within the African ecosystem without necessarily having to rely on their personal networks, right? Which is not necessarily wide for every founder on the continent, right? And I think the reverse is also true for the diaspora. I mean, many of us have tried to engage with the African ecosystem, but mostly the constraint that we have is that we necessarily do not have the networks that make it possible for us to do, right? And that's the barrier that Bantaba is breaching. So we make it seamless for startups to be able to find professionals within the diaspora that matches with the needs that they are trying to address for their businesses at any given specific time.
Yeah. And that's why you're here as well. I mean, because we totally we're on the same page that you're offering what we know that our founders need a lot of the time, and we can help solve both each other's problems, I guess. And that also leads me a little bit, we're talking about bridges and barriers in different shapes and forms. And that's kind of a nice little segue into Etor, because, you know, one of the other barriers, we have enough barriers on the continent as it is, but language is certainly one of them. And this is totally opening you up, Etor, to be able to talk about Speaker. But you can tell us a bit about Speaker, but also, you know, like how we, by removing the barriers of language, we then remove some of the barriers of business as well. And that's who hopefully a lot of your partners will start to be, that as Nana starts to launch into a Francophone country, you're there to train him, his team. And that's kind of the idea, and where I see, I guess, Speaker fitting in a lot to a lot of the companies that we work with, a lot of the partners and mentors. So tell us a little bit about like the background of Speaker and who you're finding your partners to be, because I know you've got like signed a number of good partnerships in the last few months.
Yeah, so great. So I mean, I can't overemphasize the impact of language when we talk about the business field, right? Sorry, I have a cold and cough, so if my voice is a bit rough, that's the reason why. So language really plays a key role in that space. And I mean, I really love to share my story and how it ties into really starting Speaker and who our partners are today. So I have always been fascinated about language. I discovered this right from primary school, as little as I was. And I think I was my friend teacher's favorite student, unlike the others. I mean, this just really by the way. And through high school, basic school, I realized that I wasn't only a love for French, but languages in general. So I went on to pursue that even at the university level. So I did French and Spanish, combined major, had the opportunity to go to France for my year abroad, came back, did my national service, went to the US to continue still in languages, right? I mean, I had the opportunity to stay in the US, but I didn't. I mean, most of my friends did, but I came back because I really had in mind creating something impactful in this language space. I mean, in Africa alone, there are about 2,000 languages, right? This really creates the opportunity for connecting businesses, connecting talent across the continent. So I came back, actually took a job and started speaker on the side. So what I realized as a language learner growing up was that Africans were not represented in the material I was using to learn. I was learning things in different contexts, right? I mean, mainly the Western world. Indigenous African languages were also not represented. There were no material really created for these. And so speaker, was born while in my full-time job. And then I decided to resign to pursue this because of my passion for it and the impact it could potentially make in the business field and connecting talent across the continent. So, we always say that on the entrepreneurship journey, passion is really key. But what I quickly realized on the journey was that you need mentorship, you need knowledge, you need money, right? So this is where Founder Institute really came in handy to create that network. They say that advice is cheap, but experience is expensive, right? So for me, Founder Institute really came in handy because it creates this network, getting to meet mentors, right? High profile mentors who have had years of experience. And so this literally saves you years of mistakes. It will sound exaggerated, but that's really the truth because Nana mentioned it and Marcelino has also pointed some of the things out, what his mentor did. It changed his life. And you'll be amazed the kinds of conversations you have with mentors, experienced leaders, and the perspectives it gives you into your business. And as they share the experiences too, it really comes in handy, right? So for me, Founder Institute or joining an ecosystem like Founder Institute or AfricaBerlin Network is really key as a founder, because as a first-time founder too, you need community because the journey can really be lonely. But once you have that network, it really plays a key role in growing your business startup. And beyond that network too, it gives you this global thinking, right? I already had in mind to create something impactful, like globally, right? If you want to focus on just creating a business that thrives, a small business, then really maybe Founder Institute and AfricaBerlin Network may not be the right place for you. I'm just pointing this out because it really helps you to think on a global scale, right? It opens your mind to how big you can grow your business to make the impact it needs to make. So coming back to languages and the partners we have now. So we have corporate partners, travel agencies on board and an insurance company, right? And we are hoping to add more companies to this portfolio because talent transfer to different African countries, for example, is really important because we are talking about taking talent from Africa to the Western world. And sometimes what is happening is that you're getting different people who speak certain languages come and head certain branches in different parts of Africa. But with language and with what speaker is doing, we can really change the narrative in a few years to come.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I can see, Marcelino, I hope you're taking notes there because I can see lots of touch points we can have with the AfricaBerlin Network. Mahi, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to go back to what Eto was talking about, mentorship. Now, for something like Founder Institute, we are entirely built off the back of other people's experience. We don't teach theory. We teach based on other people's experience, and then the founders getting their hands dirty by learning themselves as they go, very fast. I remember Nana saying like just the sprint is like nothing he anticipated, and he's second type founder. But from a mentor perspective, and for mentoring from outside of Ghana, you've been with us virtually for like at least two, I think, cohorts, at least two, maybe three. Where do you see mentorship helping? If you follow the journey of a founder, where would they be without it almost?
Yeah, that's a great question. And before perhaps going into that, I wanted to take a couple of seconds, to acknowledge the Ghanaian startup ecosystem for, being part of this Startup Blink's top 100 global startup ecosystem. I think that is important. Nana spoke about funding. Ghana is also among these so-called big four countries in sub-Saharan Africa in terms of access to funding. That is also very important. And a performance like that does not happen by itself. It means there is a strong network at play here. And talking about network, I think we have definitely savvy entrepreneurs in Ghana. I have made that experience through the mentorship that you mentioned. We do have well-capable ecosystem builders like FI, investors, locals, as well as outsiders, corporates that are also part of this journey. And of course, academia at some point, and mentors. Mentors are definitely key into this process. And perhaps one thing which I want to mention, the other day I was reading a book by this guy, Patrick Bet-David. It is called Your Next 5 Moves. And in that, he talks about the 3 types of mentors. Those who have read about the topic, those who have seen someone implement that topic, and people that have done it. And I believe he also said it, all of those 3 are important, but at places like Founder Institute in Ghana, you are more than likely to find people that have gotten their hands dirty doing it. So that is really important. Back to your question, again, it is important, and I believe it's also a two-way street. It's not only about giving knowledge, sharing experiences and things like that, but we also receive something in return. It is really amazing to work with these people. You see the energy. I mean, this is my first time to hear Ettore speak, but I can already feel the energy. It is important. All these guys are super pumped, to make something happen. And perhaps one last word about Ghana. All those stakeholders I previously mentioned, they operate inside a regulatory landscape. That is key, because a regulatory landscape can make or break an ecosystem. And perhaps it is fair to say in Ghana, the one that you guys have, is conducive, is supportive to making things happen. Of course, it can, as this German saying goes, es kann immer besser werden, which means it can always get better, right? So I think we have the ingredient in place, and it is really a great experience as a mentor to be able to share, but also get from the mentees. I'll stop there for now.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And again, it actually really helped me think, okay, this is where we're going. This is really good. I was thinking, from a regulatory landscape and also from a funding landscape. If we look at the big fund, the top 4, look, Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, Kenya, we're in population-wise, Ghana's nowhere near that. But from a regulatory perspective, we're pretty strong. And I'd also like to think from an FI perspective, and there's certain element of Ghana in this anyway, we try to punch above our weight. which is where I'm going to leave to Chris. Now, Chris, how many FI chapters or ecosystems can we say do you take part in around the world?
Well, I've got experience now in over 20 countries, right? So, I mean, it's interesting to note the differences between them, Simon, and I think one of the things that is glaringly obvious to me is in America, we like to think that we're the gold standard at everything. It's just kind of part of this American ego, we'll call it that. And until I accidentally got involved in Founder Institute in Africa, I'll tell you how it happened. Somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn from the Abuja program in Nigeria, and they said, "Hey, Chris, listen, I see you're a mentor in San Francisco. I would love to get your feedback." Now, that was towards the beginning of the pandemic. There wasn't necessarily an easy way in the Founder Institute environment at that time to work as a mentor from one program to another. But, bless the leadership in Abuja, they brought me in, this kind of random guy from San Francisco's program, and I started mentoring in Abuja. And what I realized is that, Ator brought up the idea of perspective. And I think we make a lot of assumptions, right? So people in America have this opinion. This is what a Nigerian business is. This is what they're all about. We have this opinion. This is what it's like in Ghana. And I can absolutely assure you that all of those opinions are wrong. I have yet to see any of the things that I saw in television commercials growing up or heard in the American narrative. What I've seen is one of the strongest communities in general. That's the underlining thing that really sets things apart in Africa. I work in Asia, I work in India, which of course is Asia, and then down in Latam. In Africa, everything is built around community. It's at the central core, and you can feel it. It's like an actual feeling. And what is super exciting about it is that there's almost like two startup ecosystems that happen in Africa, but it's really shining in Ghana. You have the ecosystem that's making the rest of the ecosystem possible. And I would argue that Ator and Speak is one of those things. You see, it's one thing to be able to cross country lines now and work amongst all the Francophone countries, but if you don't understand French, and that's the language that's spoke across that particular border in business, you're in tough shape. But as opposed to waiting and taking in the US 4 years to understand one practical word in French to speak in a meeting, let's teach them the exact things that accelerate them. So you have this whole group of startups that are accelerating acceleration in the country. And then on top of it, they're crossing over into the country lines left and right. I mean, if you look at the new African free trade built around the Francophone, you have Ghana on one side of Africa and then the rest of them on the other side. But what that's doing is it's opening up all of East Africa through Ghana, which is just an amazing opportunity. And, when looking at Nigeria compared to Ghana, and this is somewhat surprising, Nigeria is a powerhouse, okay? And I think in America, if you were to ask people what's like the largest economy in Africa, I don't think most people wouldn't say Nigeria. They wouldn't even know that, right? You would think something like Egypt or South America. There's so many darn assumptions that it's ridiculous. But then when you start dialing into the numbers, that's all well and good. But with that, there's a lot of additional challenges, coming in and entering to a market that is so much more established than others. At Ghana, you're at the beginning of some amazing industry, but with the support, like the industries have been around forever. That's what's so amazing, because of that community environment. Yes, Ghana is one of the more expensive places to live, when it comes down to Africa. But, on that same accord, that means that you have commercial industry that's viable there. You can't just set rents and leases high unless the market can handle it. That's promising. But what is one of the most interesting things is Ghana's on its pathway to discovering who their first unicorn is going to be. And I know this may be controversial. Some countries have tons of unicorns, billion-dollar plus valued companies, but I'd much rather be part of the country where I might have that chance of being the first. And Ghana has that. And, Ator brought up this great point. So many people, I love entrepreneurship, right? Startups, small businesses, nonprofits, they're somewhat all the same to me, but they're different when it comes down to pretty much everything else. So when it comes down to it, the Founder Institute is pretty much the best pathway you can have towards building that hyper growth company. And Simon brought a great point up. At the beginning, Founder Institute has historically been an in-person scenario, right? All of us would meet, kind of at whatever this particular incubator is, and around the world, it would be in person. Then the pandemic came around, which forced this virtual. And to see how much that's been able to grow the ecosystems just by eliminating some of the barriers to access. And that's the whole point of Founder and Student. I'm honored to say, as an entrepreneur in residence, the goal of globalizing Silicon Valley is pretty amazing. And they've done a very successful job, the best place to do it. But what I'm interested in seeing coming out of FI in Ghana is, how do we globalize Ghana? How do we show Ghana all over the world? Because it's an interesting place. I went to high school with Virgil Abloh, God rest his soul. He just passed away this past year. But, you know, people like him have really shown the world, like, listen, Ghana's not what it is on Sally Struthers commercials during Christmas time in America, where they ask you to send $30 to some ambiguous American nonprofit each month. I'm seeing people in Ghana run circles around industries elsewhere around the world. And it's because of leadership, it's because of community, and it's because of that double layered ecosystem that people are realizing, listen, I have the ability to get in early, but also make an impact today. And then I have the ability to build something longstanding that can change the world. And that is something that there's no ego attached to it. It's just what's happening. That's what a Ghanaian is all about. And I really love it.
And I think, you know, COVID did do us those favors of breaking down some barriers and forcing us to go virtual. And I've said quite openly that if we were to go back to being FI Accra, I wouldn't be involved, because I want to keep it as FI Ghana. I want to keep it virtual, and I want to be able to keep having that global connection. Because once we talk about being in 220 cities and we being the biggest in the world, but if you can't really touch that or feel that, where's the value? And, you know, like when Nana started, let's look at that. When Grow For Me first started with our launch program as well. So it wasn't just starting in 2019, that was when we started. And there were only 4 chapters on the continent. So Nana even came into it not even thinking that there necessarily could be touch points on the continent. I'll kind of bring that back and say that for a lot of startups that I see, when they pitch, and, you know, their growth and scale expectations are always slightly optimistic, but, you know, they're going to be, you know, all of Ghana, you know, by the end of the year, then they're going to be West Africa, then they're going to be Europe, then they're going to be America. But it's like, hang on a minute, you've got East Africa. Like, do you even think like the opportunity there? And, you know, looking, I know like someone like Nana and Ethel's business is obviously set up for this, that Nana's starting to look at different markets because Nana's growing at that pace. And if you'd have gone 3 years ago, I couldn't have really helped, because we're in 4 countries. And I'm not saying we're necessarily doing it now, but now that we do have 17 up and running, we have a bigger seat at the table. There are more touch points. I can go and find someone in Tanzania or in Uganda. You know, I did the keynote speech in Uganda, which would never have happened otherwise. And this is a great thing I always think about FI, and I'm not just pushing this, that if I need to find someone tomorrow who is an expert in the ethics of AI for women, yeah, I can send an email and I will get a response in the morning with global experts in their field. And I know a bunch of times both Nana and Eto have asked me questions like, can you find me this person, or can you find that? And that's one of the benefits of this. And having those touch points, making those connections are really crucial. So, I mean, I also want to bring it back to, I mean, I'm conscious of time, that, you know, we're here because of FI, and we're obviously recruiting for FI. The next cohort starts on the 30th of August, so we're almost there. And I know probably for Eto, this is the first time you've been on a session no longer as a founder, but as a speaker. That's all. Oh, yeah, I get that. No pun. The things happen fast. FI is a sprint, and you know there's a reason why only a quarter of the founders that start complete it, because it's not for the faint-hearted. And also, I think the importance of having mentors there. Mentors there aren't there to solve your problem. Mentors aren't there to give you all the answers to your assignments, which are also quite intense for those listening in. They're there to guide you. They're there to, I guess, as a shoulder. Let me ask Mahi, like as a mentor, what do you go into this for? Like, do you answer their questions? Do you solve their problems? Are you a bit of a counselor, a coach, an advisor, a mentor, all in one?
That's a great question, Simon, because early on, I think when you enter into a mentor-mentee relationship, you have to make it clear that you are not there to do the job. You are there to provide guidance. You are there to challenge the ideas. You are there to, to talk about what you have seen, what you have done, and perhaps the founder who is, sitting across from you will get insight in ways to deal with whatever he or she is dealing with. That is very important. It's not like a classroom. It's never like that. If that's the case, then it's not a mentor-mentee relationship. I mean, we have to protect the mindset of the entrepreneur. He is or she is, at the in the driver's seat. It's not my job to do that, right? I think that is critical. I'm happy that you mention it once again. Once the rules of engagement are sort of clear, then everyone will find his place, and it works well. This experience of having it long distance as well, I mean, it's fantastic. People in the early days thought it is not going to work, but it works now. People don't want to, yourself mentioned, you don't want to go back to the old model, right? So it really works, and people get benefit out of it. We have the tools, we have the passion again, and I believe, once again, we have to set those rules, make them clear early on, and then everything else will flow out of that.
Yeah, and the fact is as well, not every mentor, not every founder will get along. Like, this is not the way we're set up. So for the audience, so you know that we don't attach a mentor to a startup or a founder. Basically, founders go out and have office hours with whoever they want. Whoever in the world has put up office hours, that is who a founder can choose. And so, Eto, I think you had, oh God, I think it was like 38, 40 different office hour sessions that I'm aware of. And there are probably more than that during yours. So you probably spoke to about 25, let's say 20 different mentors, and with all the best intentions, you don't necessarily have the best rapport with everyone, or they don't suit where you're fitting or where you're going, and that's, I guess, the benefit of what we do. But you do come out the other end with 3 of our mentors, I think, and very, very impressive mentors sitting on your advisory board, right?
Yeah, great. Yeah. So that's the beauty of it. I mean, you actually have to make the intentional efforts to actually book office hours, speak to different mentors, right? And I mean, in the end, you get to decide which mentors really resonate with you, those who also love your idea and the business, and those who can be of help to you. Then we just narrow down the relationships to those mentors.
And it's good, and I can see where they're, in a similar way to you and your co-founder complementing each other, how you've built your mentor relationships into an advisory board. They also complement each other because they're all quite different people, with Chris being one of them. Marcelino,
are you saying that we're different? You know what I'm saying? We are.
I'm saying that you and Mishiadi are quite different people. Yes,
we are. But I could tell you this, actually being able to experience that advisory board meeting is amazing, right? Yeah. And to see, like, I was just so proud of that. I'm like, wow, look at this advisory. You get that bit of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know. Am I the small fish here in this room? And I'm happy with that. And, I can tell you, it's very bi-directional. So even when Spica was a mentee, I learned so much. If it wasn't for people like Etor, I wouldn't be as effective in Ghana. I wouldn't be as effective in Africa. The things I didn't know were baffling. And what I find, and this comes across the board in FI, I come from the world of politics. If you can't tell within 10 minutes of meeting me, then I'm not showing it enough. So I'm used to selling the idea of humans, right? The idea of ideas, platforms, positions, and things that are meant to change the world. But you see, with that, the defendability is really paper thin. The goal is to get people elected. So a startup is a lot like a political campaign. You spend all of these months building up, and then your launch is election day. But you see, the difference is, you failed at an election day, you have an opportunity to try again. So many people are involved in your startup, and there are so many things I didn't know about why your deck needs to be defendable, why you need a pitch deck in general. I used to think I never needed a pitch deck. I could just talk my way into existence. Let me tell you, you need all of this stuff. I mean, you even need page numbers on some of these things. You will lose an investor because you don't have a page number. It's surprising the rules that exist in the startup world. But I also know it's effective because I know, for instance, Simon Turner, the leader of FI Ghana, I believe one of the startups that you have is literally in the cohort. So people ask me, like, Chris, if you're a mentor, would you ever put a startup in the program? Yes, I wouldn't do a startup unless I put it through a program like FI, right? Like literally specifically FI, because I know that people would be ripping it apart all the time. And I'm not good at that, but I need to be. And you need to be an effective startup leader. You really are. And that's the thing. The people that last, the people that graduate, the people that make it in, it's easy to make it in things, even though it's hard here. I mean, there's an actual process to make it in. And it's sometimes easy to launch a business. It's easy to get investors, especially from friends and family. But for any of that to matter, that's hard. And you got to come to organizations and programs like this and meet people like the people that I'm so honored to sit on this panel with, to help you understand, is what you think matter in the right direction? Does it matter now? Are you the right person to help make this matter? How do you make it matter more? And I learned and gained so much passion for that through FI and through working with people like you, Simon.
Thanks, Chris. I was going to go and say to Marcelino that I think one of the things we can already show the effectiveness of community or the buy-in of AfricaBerlin, for example, is that there are so many attendees that are AfricaBerlin ambassadors. So it's not just you, Mahi, myself, they're joined, and they're also going to be mentors on the next program. So we further integrate what we're doing, both the missions and the goals of both organizations. So I guess as program manager for Africa-Berlin, you can take your hat off and take a bow for that. Chris alluded to something about me putting a business on a cohort. So my background, I'm a two-time founder, but in the West. And after 10 years of not doing anything like that, I'm now doing that. And so my next business is going through FI with my co-founder. So I'm not going through it myself, but my co-founder is going through it. And so out of the 3 directors for FI Ghana, 2 of us have our co-founders going through the next cohort with our new businesses. So I think that probably says about as much as we can possibly say about what we have seen FI do to people like Nana, to people like Etor, not just the founders, that I want my co-founder to be able to speak to people like Mahi, to Lamin, to Marcelino, to Chris, and Nana, and Etor. You know, I see the value in that, and then the doors that it can then open through community and through relationships. So, Lamin, I'm really hoping that Bantaba comes into play for my startup as well. I'll be selfish, and AfricaBerlin, without doubt. Everyone's got a role to play. And it's not, next cohort is not just going to be the best cohort because I have a vested interest. It's going to be the best interest because we learn more every time we go. We build more mentors, we get new faces as we already have today. We have more great stories to tell. You know, we get to Etor being in Funding Lab is another local success that we have. You know, Nana doing his recent raising is another success we have. And we celebrate successes in different ways. Some are small, some are big, some it's like almost like traction, like how we measure our metrics, that they're different. Yep, and our successes are different. But I'm going to try and pull it together now and sort of wrap things up. Everyone will get a last thing to say. Yeah. Let me flick. So I just have to talk a little bit about Founder Institute, which is why we're here, and I am ultimately selling the next cohort. So we're in 95 countries. That's over 200 cities in the world. We have now about 17 chapters in Africa. Over 20,000 mentors, a number of which are here today, both on the panel and in the audience. Our businesses have raised about 1.75 billion, and to say how much that has gone up just in the three. When I started FI in 2019, we were on about 700 million. So just in a few years, how much extra our portfolio have raised, including Nano, is amazing. And so that portfolio value is about 35 billion. But what to me is the importance of FI, and one of the reasons nearly every founder joins is because of the network. Yep, it's both because of the guidance and the structure that we give, but also the network. But there's no hiding away from the fact that it's hard and it's intense, and for most people they can't hack it, or they're not ready to hack it, or they don't have the time management skills, or they're just not ready. And sometimes not being ready is okay, because we've also seen on last cohort someone come back, someone dropped out and they came back, and when they came back they knew what they were expecting. So it was hard, but our sprints are tough. When we say that you've got to do 20 hours a week, we mean it. Yep. And if you're working full time, if you've got kids, if you're doing your MBA as well, okay, that doesn't get you out of doing 20 hours assignments. The reality is that if you think FI is hard, running a startup is even harder. And it's far better to do it within a community and within a network and with the structure that we provide. We can't do it for you, but I certainly know as a founder that didn't have any of this, that I would have loved this back in the day. It would have saved a lot of money as well, but it would have solved a lot of heartache and saved a lot of time. And that's what we're trying to do. We're condensing so many of the things that you may take 18 months and spend a lot of money trying to find out, and by accident and make mistakes. We condense that into basically 16, 18 weeks, and hopefully remove a lot of the errors that you might have made along the way, and build some good friendships and good network as well along the way. For anyone that's interested, you can also do your DNA, which is your entrepreneurial DNA. It gives you an assessment of your skills and your aptitude. You might be hyper good at one thing, but then maybe not so competitive or something like that. It's really interesting. You can do that and not join FI. For anyone in the audience, I would recommend it because it's just quite curious. Anyone that's interested in learning a little bit psychometric. This is the program that we go through. So everyone, and we deliver it locally, does the core program, of which you have two tracks: the launch track and the growth track. Launch is if it's your kind of around ideation. Growth is if you've maybe got a bit of traction. So Nana, for example, came in on growth track. So I can't remember. Help me. Growth as well. Yeah, I think actually last cohort most were actually growth, which was the first time. We have typically have a much older average age than nearly every other accelerator in the country. Our average age last cohort was 35. It's gone from 28 to 31 to 35 since I've been doing this. Whereas I think the average age was like 23 for others. So it's different, and we offer something different. And if you get through the core program, if you're one of those third founders that graduate, you then get all the access to that continued support. So the access, if you want to reach out to any of the mentors, do office hours, you can still do that. Yep, you won't have the assignments, which for some people is really good, but you still have the office hours ability there. So you can still speak to Marie, you can still speak to Chris as a graduate. But for those that really are ready to put themselves through it again and then some, there is the Founder Lab, which is both funding lab and then venture lab, which is even harder, even more intense, run by the Silicon Valley team. I again remember Nana saying just how hard it was, and I had no understanding of it then. Whereas at least when Etor went into it, I knew you could do it, Etor, but I knew that it would be tougher. But yeah, you have this, and you always have this network. And this is why I'm trying to build partnerships with Bantaba, with AfricaBerlin, that you add to that continued support. Because one of the worst things when you go through a program, I think, is you fall off a cliff at the end. Then what? Like, where is your support network? You've just been relying on a support network to then not have one. So both through FI, through Bantaba, through AfricaBerlin, if we can always have somewhere else for someone to turn to get this type of support they need, because not everyone's ready to go through Funding Lab. Not everyone wants to go through Funding Lab, and that's fine. Yep, they may find that they may need a CTO, and we may get that CTO via AfricaBerlin. Yep, they may need funding or technical support, and it may come through diaspora via Bantaba. That's what I'm counting on, and building on an even bigger network as we go. So that's us. So that's FI. We've got 2 weeks away from the fourth cohort, all of them, which is exciting. But I'm going to put it out to all of you guys one last time, just to give some closing thoughts. And I'm not going to tell you what those closing thoughts should be. I'm not going to put any parameters around it. But based on tonight's discussion, what do you want people to go home? Well, they're already home. Okay, what do you want people to switch off Zoom and be left with the thought of? So, Lamin, what are your closing thoughts on this?
Right. I mean, first, I will start with really commending all the ecosystem enablers out there in the different African countries, but more so Founders Institute, right? I mean, I think ecosystems are super important in terms of nurturing startups in different areas, right? And me sitting in Stockholm really sees the value in this, right? I mean, if you looked at the startup scene in Stockholm, right, the only reason that it stands out from so many other countries in the developed market is the magnitude and the scale of support ecosystem enablers that are present within the market, right? So I think you guys are doing a really fantastic work. I hope that regulators would also catch up in that process, because the board needs to work in order to have a vibrant ecosystem in place, right? And I think, as parting thoughts, I'll just really emphasize the importance of building networks and relationships, which has been the core message throughout this session, right? I mean, I think relationships are super important for startups, right? And these relationships are what enable startups to close their first customers, close their first partnerships, but even more importantly, be able to close their first round, right? I mean, early stage funding relies a lot on trust, right? And that trust is built through relationships. It's either you build a relationship with a party as a mentor, and then eventually they really get to know the team and like what you are doing, and eventually decide to invest, right? Or maybe they decide to refer you to someone who then invest in your company because on the basis of the referral that they got from that advice and mentor. So I think it's super important that to really emphasize that, and for early stage founders to try to build relationships, right? And I think that's where institutions like ours at Bantaba, where we try to pull together these different people, professionals within the diaspora community that are very well exposed and experienced, but more importantly, have a genuine interest in participating with what's happening in the ecosystem, right? But at the same, like the AfricaBerlin Network, I think we need to have more of these networks and communities, because we need to muscle and gather all the support out there that we can possibly gather for the African ecosystem, right? I think this is the time for the continent, and we all need to play that part to make sure that really happens. And I'm super glad to be here with everyone else, and I thank everyone for that.
Yeah, and I mean, we're practicing what we preach. We're saying that startups need networks. Like we're trying to build them as well as we go as well. So thank you for being part of our first Bantaba FI Ghana effort at creating another network for the ecosystem. Mahi, I'm moving on to you. We're going to have all our
Sure.
European, I've realized we're going to have all our European calls, people at the same time. Bye.
Yeah, sure. First off, I want to say thank you for pulling together this panel. It was very interesting. I hope that people were able to get some benefit out of the discussion. I'm not going to be very long. You mentioned it. It's all about doing here. People might have ideas, but entrepreneurship is about doing. So go home, digest, and take action. If you don't take action, is also another form of taking action. Yeah, so I'll stop there. And once again, thanks. Was really interesting. Yeah, keep in touch.
Thanks, Mahi. See you on Full 22. Coming
Sure.
soon. Coming soon to a Zoom near you. Marcelino, our first time as well at practicing what we preach and building this network, but say what you want.
Thank you. So, well, first of all, thank you for this, and about like preaching with example, is that I would like to mention, for example, your story that I was quite impressed when I met you as an ambassador, because I saw in you someone that actually put her actions where her heart is, and in this case is in Ghana and helping developing the whole continent. So that's something that it's really remarkable, and I wanted to acknowledge it now. And at the same time, I want to mention something that I feel really proud of, like the amount of ambassadors that are in the AfricaBerlin Network. And this call, I saw Emmy, I saw Enrico, Mahi, and yourself. So all of you are make me someone super proud of doing what I'm doing. And I want to leave, or like to end this with like a question that once a mentor asked me, and basically I said, like, I don't know if I should continue with doing this effort or not. Let's call it a company, whatever it is. And then the guy said, what would you do if you know you cannot fail? And then I started thinking and said, like, okay, don't do that, because most likely you're gonna fail. But that's why you have me, he said, no, like, so that I can give you advice. And the answer to that question will only show you the direction, not the way, but the direction. And so yeah, that's something that I would like to share with like the people here. Like, when you really don't know what to do and you want to get into action, as Mahi said, ask yourself that question, and don't do exactly that, because most likely you will fail. Nevertheless, that will show you the direction. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's good. I like that. Thanks, Marcelo. Nana, moving on to you. Back to Ghana.
Yes. So my final comments. I'll just tell a story. So Eto reached out to me, and she had some questions because of mentorship that had been provided to me in the process of building my company while I was in FI. She really leapfrogged that phase. Something that would have taken her days and weeks. She just got it done in a day, right, Eto? Is that correct? Yeah. So that's so that's the power of FI. And secondly, another story, just to put what I was saying in context and story, so that those who are watching will appreciate it. So my first investor, I'd reached out to a number of investors, and my first investor said, "Hey, I don't know you. Your pitch deck could probably just have false information. It could just be lying to me. So I'm not going to look at a pitch deck. I'm not going to look at any of those things. I want someone that can vouch for you, that says, I'm confident that I know this guy, I know his team, they're serious about what they've been doing and been committed to it, and they can convince, or they can confirm that we can bet our dollars on them." So the investment company reached out to the FI president in Ghana, which is Simon, and he had seen our work and he had seen how much we committed to it, and he gave a very positive feedback, and we raised our first investments. Now, these two stories are evidence of the value of FI, and we've now gone on to raise, quite a lot of money for our pre-seed round, and it's because fundamentally because of FI. I've been through a couple of programs, but FI formed the basis for me to meet other mentors who are now very critical to my business, my relationships, a few to mention CC Hub and the rest. So for everyone watching, I think that there's a lot that we can say, but join the FI family. It provides you an opportunity to really tap into a very powerful network of people who would guide you, help you, provided you are serious about building a company. And if you're not serious about it, they'll find out quickly and kick you out. So that's just my last statement. So thank you so much, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Anna. And that's true. They do kick you out. Chris, final thoughts?
You know, I really appreciate everyone's points tonight. And I think Ator said it best when she drew attention to the fact that, you know, you save yourself a lot of time, right? You know, I look back at how much time I've wasted in my life. And, you know, I used to love the idea of being called an idea person. You know, I've had a bunch of ideas ever since I was a little kid. All of us do. And that's what I realized. You know, there's so many great ideas out there, so many that it's almost a dime a dozen, and vision is not enough either. That's why vision is just 1/13 of the weeks that they have at FI. It's about surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you. And I promise when you do that, you're the person that's smarter than that person in what you do. And FI's really, really opened my eyes to it. And you know, it's almost like a lot of the mentors that I go to, I didn't get my first mentor in my life until I was 40 years old. And I actually met the person through Founder Institute, you know, who was a mentor there. And, you know, I wanted to help him with his particular business on something. I wanted to volunteer for one of his nonprofits. And the guy basically started mentoring me. And long story short, here it is sometime later. And we have a global advisory firm that really helps people and helps ideas become something beyond just an idea. So literally the root of even that is in FI. And that was something I never thought would ever happen. You know, so not only is it an honor to participate in all this, but to see how much time in people's lives don't go wasted. And just because you have an idea that may not pan out to be a business doesn't mean it wouldn't be an awesome nonprofit or a social enterprise or a brick and mortar, but that also means that you most likely have more ideas as well. And that's why FI, the way that it's set up, boy, if I would have gone, I'd probably already be in. I probably wouldn't be a mentor right now if I would have gone through FI, because I would have been caught up in the idea of why didn't I do this for every single thing that I had in my ideas. And I'm just so thankful for it. And I learned so much. I've learned things tonight. And, you know, so that being said, for all of you, if you want to break away in what we call breakout velocity, right? Get that terminal velocity that allows you to escape from what you would consider to be the woes of startup. You need an FI. And I'll be there for you. Just because I'm 7,000, 8,000 miles away doesn't matter at all. And that's the beauty of the way that the program's set up. So Simon, it's always a pleasure being here. I'm always excited to join panels with such great leaders like this. But more importantly, I'm really excited to meet some of the new founders that are in the cohort coming up. Thanks for having me.
Chris, thanks for joining. Always appreciate your insights. And finally, Eto, you get to speak and then you get to go to bed and feel better.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Simon, for putting this together. It's been really great. And I would really love to end by just using a scenario, right? Contrasting the African startup ecosystem to the Western startup ecosystem. I think Chris even painted a bit of the picture in his comments somewhere. So when you take the Western startup ecosystem, for example, I mean, you have a great idea, then you put together a team of people, your friends, right, to join you on the journey, and then you raise a family and friends round, right? Then you use that to create traction, then you're ready for, I mean, bigger investments. Now, when you look at the African startup ecosystem, you have an idea. And then you can get a few friends to join you on the journey. But I mean, to put it bluntly, why are you going to get a family and friends round, right? To start to give you traction in order to chase that, bigger money or impact. Now, the way I see it, right, as a first-time founder, you are really only left with two simple options. And again, just to buttress the points, the way I see it, you have to join a group like FI, an ecosystem like FI, the AfricaBerlin Network, Bantaba, right, to help you to shape that journey, to give you that direction, right? Because beyond working on something that you are passionate about, of course, that's really key. You can work on something you're not passionate about and still make an impact and be successful. But really what keeps you going on the journey is the passion, right? And again, beyond that passion, you need a network. So I was saying you're left with two things: to join an ecosystem like that of FI. My colleagues here have really hammered the point home. It saves you years of failure, right? You get direction, you get guidance, you build invaluable relationships. So you're left with that as an option, or you're alone to struggle on the journey, right? So it's really simple. And so what FI is building here is really phenomenal. It's amazing. And I can't overemphasize it enough. So if you're here, you have an idea, really FI is a place to be, gives you that ecosystem, that network to keep building and making the impact you are passionate about making.
Thanks, Eto. And I think we talk about a network, and I'll just end on this, that a network isn't just about who you get business from, who you get talent from, who you get tech from, it's not always commercial. You need a network around you through a support network, be what it may. When things get tough, when your well-being is not great, you need someone to lean on. Yeah, and that isn't necessarily a commercial discussion. That's a vent. I just need to vent. I will sometimes vent at Chris, for example, just because I've had one of those days, or when things are tough. Like Nana's heard me complain sometimes as well about being a bit overwhelmed or something. I don't know what we've discussed, but networks mean different things at different times for different people. Okay, but you need one as a startup, and as a founder, you need a network, and it needs to be composed of a whole different bunch of people. So whether you start FI or you don't, know that without a network, you'll really struggle. But thank you to all of our panelists tonight. It's been really great to have you. I always feel like we don't get enough time to talk to each of you, that I'm leaving people out, but I'm really grateful for your time that you give us tonight, the time that you give to FI as well. And I know the time that you give me as well when I ask for questions and ask for favors, and I appreciate that as well. And I think that shows how we know that it does take an ecosystem, and that we all pull and rely on each other at different times. So thank you very much for joining, everyone. There are the people. If anyone in the audience wants to reach out to these guys, you can find them on LinkedIn. If they want to drop their LinkedIn in the chat, they can. If they don't, they don't. That's why I'm not putting it there. But this session will be online, in the next couple of days on the FI channels. After I've removed my wreck of a start. But thank you for everyone. And I must give a little shout out to next week's session, which is entirely different. We are talking with creatives. We've got some gamers. We're talking metaverse, all the things that I'm not really that great with. But in partnership with Africa Aid, we've got some real cool people in the creative space, looking at how you start and scale, because it still requires a network, it still requires an ecosystem, but in some ways for creators it's even tougher sometimes, when this is not fintech, which maybe is more easy to attract funding to. But please join us next week. You can just go to fi.co/Ghana and look under events. I would type the actual the link in, but I can't get to my notes. But if you follow any of the FI Ghana channels, we're pretty incessant with our marketing, so it'll be in your face very, very soon. So that's next Tuesday, same time. And the very last thing is that we are literally a week and a half away from the closing of applications for the full 22 cohort, which will be, like all the others, virtual. And the cohort starts on the 30th of August. And it will go through to the end of January. You can apply by going to fi.co/Ghana, or reach us through any of our online channels. There's a question from Robert, just in the audience. Is FI available to non-profits? Unfortunately, it's not. We're only available to profits. But I'm going to check out your link because it looks really interesting what you're doing. And as networks go, it doesn't have to be FI. We might be able to point you in another direction and help you there, because this does look quite curious. Let me try and copy it. Cool. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time. I hope you tune into future events, and good luck, Eto and Nana, with your entrepreneurship journey. Mahi, we definitely hope to see you back on the next cohort. Marcelino and Lamin will keep pushing our network and make it bigger. Thank you for everyone that attended tonight. Thank you for the FI Ghana team behind the scenes, putting all the things in the chat. That's also awesome. It takes a village after all. So thanks, everyone. And I will see you next time. Good evening from Ghana.
Goodbye.